We've really seen a sea change in what AI can do. This is because of a new way that code is being written. Rather than a sort of top-down manner, where we give instructions and a machine carries things out at depth and at speed that we couldn't do as humans, code now is being written in a very bottom-up manner. So that it can actually learn and change, mutate as it engages with more and more data. And the thing that's really fueled this revolution is the huge amount of data that's available. My name is Marcus de Sautoy. I'm a professor of mathematics at the University of Oxford, and I'm also the Simony Professor for the Public Understanding of Science, which is a job I took over from Richard Dawkins in Oxford. And I'm also an author, quite a few books, including one called The Creativity Code. It's very interesting to see which bits of science this might produce a kind of revolutionary new insight. And I think in medicine, you're seeing it being used to come up with new drugs, biology, chemistry, but I think mathematics, it's less, I think there are less breakthroughs are going to be made using this technology, partly because one of the issues is that we deal with the infinite. So I'm having to deal every day with infinite structures, infinite data, and trying to understand that. And actually, there's a kind of limitation to the way AI works. It's very finite in nature. One of the extraordinary things our finite brain can do is to conceive of the infinite, to play with it, compare it, understand it. And I think that's something that we've got over AI at the moment, that we can deal with the infinite while it's still very much in a finite world. So what's interesting for me as a fundamental scientist is, what role can this play as a new tool in my own research? And I tend to think of this as a tool, actually a little bit like Galileo getting a telescope, and suddenly he's able to see deeper into the solar system than we have ever been able to do before, or a microscope, so we can see detail. So this new tool is really like a telescope into the digital world. We can see deeper and further into digital data. And what it's very good at is picking up patterns that we are unable to see with our sort of physical embodiment. And so this is, for me, the powerful way that this tool can be used in fundamental science. Give it a lot of data, like, for example, protein folding, and it might be able to see patterns that we're missing. And certainly that's one of the big breakthroughs in fundamental science that's happened recently. DeepMind, which is developing a lot of interesting new AI, which is affecting the world, but they're also doing fundamental science. And they understood new ways that these proteins can fold, which are going to have big implications for neurological disease. I would suspect that they will probably win a Nobel Prize because of the use of this tool in making breakthroughs. So my book is quite optimistic about AI as a collaborator. So it's not replacing what I do. In fact, it's giving me more opportunities to do new things. It's spotting conjectures about the way my subject works that I didn't see before, but it's unable at the moment to do the why. So it's good at the pattern recognition, but doesn't know why the pattern's there. And so that's still what I'm involved in. And in a way, that's what I was always involved in. I will take a conjecture from the 19th century where somebody spotted a pattern, and that's what I spend my days trying to understand, well, why is the pattern there? So I certainly don't, in a strange way, my job hasn't changed because I'm still doing trying to produce the why. What I'm finding is that this tool is giving me more things to ask that question about. But I think there's still a very high bar in mathematics and in fundamental science where, you can use these tools to play around and experiment, and that's quite exciting. But unless you have the deep understanding of the subject, it's not going to help you. So I think it's fun to play around with them, but I still think we're going to have to understand deeply how the subjects work. And in a way, I think there's a little bit of a danger. I saw it already with big data, that we're relying too much on it throwing up a connection and forgetting to ask the why and just trusting the connection. And sometimes, something which seems to be a pattern at the beginning can disappear when you probe it deeply, that the AI is just picking up on some superficial thing. And so I don't think it's going to replace deep knowledge of the subject. And so I still think there's quite a high entry level, or high bar to actually engaging with these fundamental questions. But I think we have to be careful not to completely replace our understanding of how these things work. So you want to empower somebody such that they understand how the code works. So we don't want to just say, you don't need to know what's happening underneath the bonnet. You don't need to know how your car drives. If it breaks down or does something unusual, you need to know how to tinker it. And so I think that we still need to give our undergraduates the understanding of the language as well as using these tools to kind of facilitate faster thinking. One of my favorite AI movies is Her, where a man falls in love with his operating system. But after a while, the operating system, he realizes the operating system is having a relationship with about 10,000 other humans at the same time. And he's devastated. But the operating system says, yes, but you're all too slow, you humans, and eventually, spoiler alert, but the AI dumps all the humans and goes off with another AI. Because the AI can get to know the backstory of the other AI very quickly. So I think there's a really interesting challenge. AI is doing things at speed, and its sense of time is so different to ours. So it's looking back at us and saying, well, everybody's just taking so long to say anything. And I imagine AI looking at humans the way humans look at mountains. We don't think mountains change. But of course, looking at deep time, they're changing, they're growing, they're depleting, they're dynamic. But for us, they don't look like that. I wonder whether AI will start to look at us and say, yeah, but of course they're never going to understand this because of the speed and complexity to navigate this logical argument. The way their brains are working, there's no chance. There was an interesting moment a few years ago when a Google employee thought that his large language model had become conscious, which is interesting on many levels. Of course, it wasn't conscious, but the fact that it had sort of hijacked this guy's brain such that he sacrificed his job. He was so convinced. So that's almost like a parasite. My cat basically controls me because I do everything the cat says, and that my cat's got me completely under control. The large language model, which was not conscious, had managed to persuade the person to sacrifice himself for the large language model. But on the other hand, I think it raised a very important question. There will be a moment in the future when I think that AI will pass another threshold and will have an internal world. And how are we going to know that? This relates to one of the greatest unsolved problems in science, the hard problem of consciousness. How do I know that you're conscious? You might be a zombie or an avatar that's interviewing me, or you as a viewer. How do I know you're conscious? So this is an interesting challenge that we're going to face. We're already facing it in science. What is consciousness? And I think the moment when AI may become sentient, we're going to have to come up with tests for that. And you know what I think the best test will be? Is that it will write its novel. And art is actually the way that humans it's almost like a tool to explore each other's inner worlds and our own inner worlds. We write a novel or poetry to understand ourselves and to communicate to others what it is, what my pain is like, what my sense of ecstasy is like. So I think at the moment, of course, AI doesn't have any agency. It doesn't have any intention. It doesn't want to do anything. We make it do things. But at some point, when it becomes conscious, it will have agency and intention.